The number one job of an entrepreneur is to protect his or her confidence. And I think ultimately that confidence is the thing that you want to help people with. And
Hmm.
so one of the things that I see is like I see what as my superpower is you have to see people where they are, because if you don't see where they are, I mean, you can't see people through rose-colored glasses or Pollyannish. You got to be honest where people are. But that doesn't mean at the same time you can't see them at their highest potential.
Do you think money takes up more life space than it should? On this show, we discuss with and share stories from artists, authors, entrepreneurs, and advisors about how they mindfully minimize the time and energy spent thinking about money. Join your host, Jonathan Dio, and learn how to put money in its place and get more out of life.
Hey, welcome back. On this episode of the Mindful Money Podcast, I'm chatting with Mark Murphy. Mark is the CEO of the Northeast Private Client Group. He's an author, a speaker. He helps entrepreneurs achieve multi-generational wealth through personalized strategies, leveraging his strategic planning and financial engineering knowledge. I wanted to have him on the podcast to talk about his book, The Ultimate Investment. Mark, welcome to the Mindful Money Podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So first, where do you call home and where are you connecting from?
Well, we're connecting. Our headquarters is in Roseland, New Jersey, and we live in Mountain Lakes, New Jersey, although I try to spend a good chunk of the winter in Palm Beach at our house there. I am temporarily out of Manhattan.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up dumb and broke in Suffern, New York.
In where, New York?
Suffern, New York, just about 30 miles outside the city in Rockland County, a suburb, maybe just outside New York City.
Got it. What did you learn about money and I guess since you're an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship growing up?
I learned that when my father had a heart attack Christmas Day, my senior year of high school, and the money dried up, and then we had to make a lot of choices about education, choices about lots of things. It made me realize that that's not the path that I wanted to take, because my parents lived a good middle class, upper middle class life, but the savings was at zero. And so when my father went down, he didn't die, but he was never the same. Money was okay, and then money was scarce from then on.
Was he the primary breadwinner?
Yeah, he was the only breadwinner. I mean, this was back in the in the 70s when not every women of that generation, woman like my mother, born in 1929, they didn't generally go to work. They stayed home and raised kids in that generation more often than not.
And so the change in the household was we went from sort of upper middle class to like worried about money. And did you experience conversations with mom and
dad? It just wasn't there. You just realized that they had and I supported them for the rest of their lives. It just made me clear that there was just no forethought to anything they did. They spent everything they made. They probably should have lived a middle class life. Maybe lived a little bit better than that. But then when the party was over, the party was over. One of the things that has always been passion to me is I wanted to make sure that never happened to me. And so I've dedicated my own life to creating multi-generational wealth and now building our own family office. But I want to do that for every person. I mean, we're the firm that's known that helps people create multi-generational wealth. But I say one more level, it's not just about wealth, because, Jonathan, you could be the richest man in Babylon and have no friends or no family or be unhealthy or be miserable or, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that the other thing we also want to do is we want to help people create a life by design.
Yeah.
Where they go from one thing they like to something they like better to something like more than that, and to design a life that they never would have to retire from, or they might not even have to take a vacation from because they love what they're doing all the time.
So I have a lot of questions about that, the process and that specifically, and the book. Before we do that, tell us about your career arc. So what led you to starting Northeast Private Client Group? And were you involved in the industry prior to that, or did you just launch right now?
When I started, I came off the campus at Indiana University, the Kelley Business School. When I came to a financial services firm in 1985, they offered me $1,000 a month, which was $1,000 a month more than I was making. And in fact, it wasn't even really a salary; it was a draw against future revenue. So I think my last paid job, was as a bouncer in Bloomington, Indiana. My senior year of college. That was the last time I drew a paycheck from that.
So I started in the industry, I think, let's see, you said 1985. I started in 1996, 11 years later. The draw was $500 more a month. I got $1,800 or $1,500 a month, right? $18,000 a year. That was my income the first year.
You started there, and I just, realized that there was an opportunity. And I think the thing that, I would say to people out there is I think one of the things you learn is that you think like when you go to school that everything is so competitive and it's going to be so hard out there. And I think for somebody who's reasonably smart and who is willing to work, America is an amazing place to make a living in. You can do anything you want to do if you're willing to work. People always say follow your dreams, and I believe on that on some level, but I probably more prefer follow your talent.
Yeah.
And find stuff that you're good at and you love and doing those things. But we started kind of at like an accidental, kind of accidentally kind of came in the business, and 39 years later, it feels like I made the right choice.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's a fantastic business. So this is your third book. What was the inspiration to writing this book, The Ultimate Investment, a roadmap to grow your business and build multi-generational wealth?
At this point in my life, what I'd like to do is I'd like to positively impact the lives of 100 million people. Now, I don't think I can do that directly because I'm only one person, but I think if I can collaborate with great people like you, together, maybe we can make a difference in the lives of many, many more people together than we could apart. All I want to do is kind of share some of the things I've learned along the way and some things that I would think help people to have a more abundant life. I feel like I'm the highest paid social worker in America, in terms of making a difference in the lives of all the people we touch.
So just getting into some of the stuff, you talk a lot about the difference between, it completely resonates when you say this, the difference between buying yourself a job and running a business. Can you just sort of put those ends together?
In 1974, there was a study that said 5% of the people in the United States were entrepreneurs. And there was a study that recently came out. And so with all the improvements in information and technology and everything, they did that study and they found out that 5% of the people were entrepreneurs 50 years later. And I think, by the way, there's enough of us, Jonathan, that we can change the world. We don't need 5%. That's enough people to go do that. Oftentimes what you want to do is you want to be able to share those strategies to help other people create the abundance they have. Ask that question again. I want to make sure I answered that correctly.
Yeah. I want to know the difference between buying yourself a job and running a business.
Right. Oh, well, then I would say this. You're dealing with people that are business owners. And so immediately you find out that people, and you say to them, you're in a room full of 100 business owners, let's say, and you say, how many people are entrepreneurs? And everybody's hand goes up. And what I think they quickly can realize is that probably 95% of them have bought themselves a job.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting paid for what they do. They're not getting paid for what they know. If I took them into the witness protection program for a year or two, I don't think their business, most of them would even survive, much less thrive. And so ultimately, the challenge for folks is that the definition of an entrepreneur to me is somebody who gets paid for what they do. And then there's like a lot of telltale signs of the way people are entrepreneurs. Like you get to a certain age and people say, when are you going to retire? And I think that's an anathema to entrepreneurs because entrepreneurs doesn't mean they won't slow down. It doesn't mean they might not sell their business. But an entrepreneur always has to be in creation and fascination mode. Some of the most miserable people I know who are retired are entrepreneurs who you'll sit down with you and you go, hey, Jonathan, I used to have 12,000 people that reported to me. And now I play golf and I go to the dry cleaner and I make dinner reservations. And these people are miserable and they have all the money in the world. Yep. And so the idea is with entrepreneurs, it's about creating, creation and fascination. And as I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, a life by design, a life the way they want to live it.
So let's answer the core question. Like the book is The Ultimate Investment. So what is the best investment we can make?
The best investments entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial thinking people can make is when they invest in themselves. I think there's only two things. There's expenses and there's investments. Expenses for me, I don't know about you, but for me, they're always on the chopping block. But I have an unlimited appetite for investment as long as I can get at least a 4 or 5 to 1 return on my money or more. And you can't get that in the stock market. You can't get that in fixed income. You can't get that in a variety of products. You certainly can't get that on a guaranteed or reliable basis. I've come to the conclusion that if I only had $1 to invest, the best place to invest that is in me. And it could be in one of my business, either in my business or some other operating company. Or even if you don't own a business, Jonathan, because not every entrepreneur owns a business, do you invest that in additional training or capability or networking? Or, there's so many ways that people can invest and become the best version of themselves to get that next opportunity. And that doesn't necessarily have to come with owning a business.
I think that's really, really important. I think, and that's one of my favorite lessons that you talk about because it applies at every socioeconomic level. If you're just starting out, you never thought about running a business, you've got a little bit of money, and if you invest in yourself, training, education, whatever, you can increase your income that enables you to invest more later in your own business or whatever. So it's something that works across the socioeconomic spectrum. Whoever you are, invest in yourself. It's one of the things I love about your writing. You talk about the difference between transformational. This is another thing in terms of the investment, transformational versus transactional. Lay that out for us. What's the difference between a transformational investment and a transactional investment?
You'll see my process being slow. I'm a slow learner. You'll find out. I'll share with you in a minute. But about 20 years ago, I was trying to figure out how to clone my best clients. And so I was trying to get some commonalities with clients. And I kept thinking, and I kept coming across those sort of same general themes. They were generally big thinking people. They were generally very loyal. They were generally reciprocated. They generally appreciated our expertise. They also generally, wanted to be in transformational rather than transactional relationships. And so I kind of sat on that for a year or two, and I couldn't figure out how all those kind of pieces kind of fit together. It kind of dawned on me about a year or two later where I said, that's who I am. That's who we are as a company. And I realized that I was only attracting people that were like-minded to me. So, I'm not the kind of person that when I'm in, I'm all in. So if I do business with you, I want to transform your life going forward. I'm just not looking to do transactions together or to have very surface, shallow kinds of relationships that are very transactional, that are, dependent upon a variety of flimsy reasons. I want people where we can build deep relationships and really make a difference.
Have you read The Go-Giver by Bob Berg?
Yeah. Oh, yes. And a couple other books like that.
Yeah. It just resonates. What you're saying is exactly what I learned from some of those. I interviewed him 6-8 months ago. He's just a great guy. How does all of this fit into entrepreneurial mindset? Like you talk about the mindset being important.
I think a lot of the tools and technology is out there, but if you're not prepared to receive it, it will never work. It's not penetratable until your mind is right to go do that. I could literally talk for weeks about different things, but I think the number one job of an entrepreneur is to protect his or her confidence. And I think ultimately that confidence is the thing that you want to help people with. And so one of the things that I see is I see what as my superpower is you have to see people where they are, because if you don't see where they are, you can't see people through rose-colored glasses or Pollyannish. You got to be honest where people are. But that doesn't mean at the same time you can't see them at their highest potential. And that's my superpower, to see them in that place of what's possible and be that vehicle for being possible. And so the idea is that you want to believe in them so viscerally, as Dan Sullivan says, you want to believe in them so viscerally that they believe in themselves. That's a superpower. And that's something that allows then people to be open to the possibility that they can achieve the kind of things that they want in their life and the kind of abundance they want in their life, not just financially, but in every area of their life.
How did you develop that superpower? Or let's just make it simpler, that mindset.
I just think I'm always at my best when I'm serving others. And when I started Northeast Private Client Group 39 years ago, this was my vehicle to make other people's lives better. And so I think when you talk about the Go-Giver, you talk about other things with law of attraction, you want people that you tend to attract people. I generally, as a firm, I don't attract a lot of, we call them customers. Right. We have clients. There's a lot of businesses that are happy to have lots of customers. Generally, the customers don't find their way to me. The people that want transactional relationships generally don't find their way to our firm. That's sort of the way it works.
I've heard people talk about make sure your ladder's against the right wall. Like when we're just beginning, got to make sure ladders are. And you talk about the 4-question Ikigai test.
Yes.
How do I tell if I'm in the right place? What are the questions?
I think the 4 questions is, am I passionate? The prism that I look through a lot of decisions I make. In fact, I'm at the age now where a lot of my friends' kids are getting out of college and looking for their first jobs. We seem to be hiring a number of them, but I think we're getting into all different fields and parts of the world. But I think the question I would be asking if I was them, and I think I put that through every prism that I look at, is the first question is, am I passionate about it? The second, am I good at it? Just because I'm passionate about it I might not be good at it. The third is, does the world need that product or service? And the fourth is, can I get paid to do it? And I think it can't be a yes to 1 or 2 or 3 or even all 4 questions. It should be a hell yeah. And if it's hell yeah to those 4 things, I'll generally move forward and invest my time, my capital, my effort, my energy to go do that if it meets those criteria. And if it doesn't, remember the challenge is always time and attention. And so the idea is I'll generally take a pass on that, or I'll generally, will not, move forward in that way. And that's how I encourage, those kids who seek advice from me to do the same.
It's a great rubric. It's just those four things. If those four things fit, then yeah, let's do this, right? Let's do this. I'll help you as much as I possibly can. If these four things can be answered, yes, I like it.
Because I don't think it ever can have long-term, there's always the story about man bites dog, and there's always the exception to the rule. And there's always a story about somebody that did it. But I think in general, I don't know too many people that have been really successful in life that didn't do two things. They didn't work really hard at some point in their life. And they also weren't passionate or didn't love what they were doing and love the people they were doing it with. And by the way, God bless you, how miserable life is it to be successful at something you hate.
Right.
That to me is like a life sentence. That's a sentence. That's not an opportunity.
That's a trap, right?
Yeah.
So the title of the book has words like investment and business and wealth, big money words, right? But I get the sense just from your talking to you today and from reading that it's not about money. It's about a path that leads to a successful life. So money is one of the outcomes, but what are the ingredients of a successful life to you?
I always say, I think one of the keys to life and the power to influence people in a positive way is that I always say the good ones tell, the great ones ask. And I can't believe that, we have developed a business that people pay us the kind of money that they pay us, millions and millions and millions of dollars a year, to ask them questions. And so the idea is the discovery process isn't about me telling them what I think or telling them what they should do with their life. It's the idea is to ask them the most powerful questions to help them and be part of the journey to help them discover, maybe together with you, what they want to do and get clear about what they want to accomplish. So when it's done, it becomes their path, not my path. That's the great joy because, quite frankly, I'm not sure everybody would want my path or want your path. They want to create their own path. And I think if you can help people to do that, and the fun part of it to me, Jonathan, is that I think people are always shocked at all levels about what's possible. Like they all come back and I go, wow, I never thought, in my wildest dreams, I never thought that I could do this, or I could have this, or I could be part of this, or any of those things. And I think, I can't believe they pay you money to help people have this great discovery.
I know, right? Yeah, I do. I love that part of the work. Are there any common ingredients though? Are the things that are, these 4 or 5 things that suggest, yeah, this is a successful life. These are the elements of a successful life.
I think for everybody, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different, but I think it's, as Robert Byrne used to say, I think one of my favorite Robert Byrne quotes is, the purpose of life is a life of purpose. People want wealth and they want health and they want love and they want purpose. And I think, you can use different words or synonyms or other things like that, but there's nothing sadder to me than, as I say, seeing somebody with all the money in the world who has no love in their life, or to see somebody that doesn't have their health, or to see somebody that has no purpose. Some of the things I think with some of the folks we work is, one of the things that so many of, say, professional athletes who, let's say, retire in their late 20s or mid 30s or something, or the Wall Street people who oftentimes retire at 45 or so, or maybe normal retirement age for many people is 60 or 65 years old, or even 70 now. And, I always say in life, there's no finish lines, there's only milestones. And so I think that the idea to us is that it's just, life is just a series of S curves. And I think, you just have to get to the highest or best or next S curve. And sometimes I find myself dealing with professional athletes because they're not 70 years old, they're 30 years old. And they've never done anything, as an example, like say an NFL player. All they want to do their whole life is they focus their whole life on being a great football player. And now they're 30 years old, their career is over, and they've thought nothing about the next 50 years.
Yeah.
And they're totally unprepared. So I've always said, I can't help you, run faster, jump higher, catch a ball better, but I can help you have an even more successful life after football than you had during your career. And the idea is using the tools and the things that have gotten you to become a world-class athlete, to use some of those same skills to give you the confidence that you can do it because you've already done it before. Why don't we just transfer what you've learned to become a best-in-class athlete, to turn that into something that allows you to be a best-in-class person after sports?
Yeah. In whatever function you want to do, find that passion and overlap those skills. I love it. I ask every guest that comes on to kind of simplify the message. So let's pretend for a second you're talking to a budding entrepreneur, someone just starting out. What is one thing that they should focus on immediately? So today, tomorrow, that would add or improve their chance of great personal success?
I would first focus on a mindset One, I'll say practical. One, I think is philosophical. The philosophical one is, I think it's mindset, meaning that ultimately I have not learned a lot from my successes. I've learned far more from my failures. So what I like to teach people is that, failure is just another form of market research, especially with entrepreneurial people. You're always learning, even with your failures, and you're just that much closer to success. And you want to be there because so many people give up right before good things are ready to happen. So you would want to encourage them not to do the same things again that failed, but to learn from those failures and to have that mindset that, hey, even if something bad happens, what's great about that? And I can take something out of that that's valuable to me going forward. That's a philosophical piece. And I could wax poetic about that for days. The second piece is, I think the number one reason why people do not have success fail, or they don't have the success that they should, is that they don't have cash confidence. That I think ultimately you need to have enough liquidity to be able to take advantage of opportunities and emergencies. So to me, I've created a lot of my wealth when I've had money and somebody else needed money. But I've also been able to run businesses long-term with a long-term strategy, even if we had a bad quarter or a bad year or something unexpectedly bad happened, because we had the cash to be able to withstand that and allow ourselves to ride out and have a long-term business plan and not manage day to day, but manage over a longer period of time to success.
So important. I think that my business survived because I had that cash on the sidelines in 2008-9 when everything else melted down. I was able to gather clients and grow my practice simply because I was ready in that period. So that's great advice. So that's one side of the coin. Other side of the coin is, what's one thing that this budding entrepreneur is focused on, probably because somebody sold them on this idea that they should just ignore, they should quit thinking about it?
One of my pet peeves is that life balance. I think part of the early journey of an entrepreneur is you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable and being a little out of balance and being able to willing to do things that other people don't do. And what I always say is, I don't believe in competition. I believe in differentiation. Mm-hmm. So how can we help you differentiate yourself from other folks that are out there? And I think that, I think a lot of people think they're competing all the time. They think you're competing against the guy down the street. What you want to do is, I think in a perfect world, what used to never made any sense to me is people would say, all I want is a level playing field. And then, so I used to think, well, that sounds stupid to me. What I want to do is let's run straight downhill. And then I realized, well, that's not good enough. I go, why don't we aspire to play in a competition-free zone where the only place that client, patient, or customer can get that experience is by working with you and your firm.
It's also the best way to make your fees completely defensible. It's, how do you make it so they're happy to pay your fees? Just make the experience so incredible. Love it. Before we wrap up, I'd like to come back to the personal just a bit. What would constitute a perfect day for you?
I've got a beautiful wife and I've got 5 kids. I will be announcing this weekend who my favorite child is. That's I've told them you don't have to be there to win. You don't have to be present to be considered or to win. But I think always it comes back to family. I think for most folks. But if you're asking me something, I would, my happy place is Bloomington, Indiana, where I went to school and, I happened to be on the board at IU, and we're football and basketball season ticket holders. So, if you ask me what a perfect day would be a day with my family. We're on a day the Hoosiers won another national championship in basketball, or maybe the New York Rangers in hockey. Well, win the Stanley Cup again or something. I think the idea is that might be a perfect day.
Yeah, I love it. Especially the Hoosiers winning. I think it's a long shot, but if it happens, I hope it happens for you. What was the last thing you changed your mind about?
That is a really great question. I should be better prepared for that. It's not being out there to please other people. I think you should be humble, confident, but humble. Confident you can do the job, and humble that, because if you have hubris, that's the ruination of all who have it. Part of it is, I think that when you're young, you try too hard sometimes. I think you get to a point where you change your mind and you realize that regardless of the situation, you're never the seller, you're always the buyer, and you're giving them the opportunity to have the experience to be able to work with you. And that if people decide not to work with you or not to become your friend, or they don't want to be in your life for whatever reason, that's okay. And, where when I think you're young, you want everybody to like you and everybody to please you. And I think we're human beings. We'd rather people like us than not like us. But I think you change your mind where it's okay to say, hey, that person's better not, when you start a business, and you're young and you're impressionable, you're trying to put a round peg in a square hole sometimes. And I think sometimes that the best decision is to step away from, people in your life that could be toxic or suck your energy, or maybe just are not good people. I think that's the thing. You probably change your mind. I probably change my mind out more where, when you're 22 years old, if I could get an appointment with that chair, or I was trying to please everybody, maybe that's not as important as it was when I was younger.
Finally, Mark, tell people how people they can connect with you. Where do they find you?
They can get me at northeastprivateclientgroup.com. We're in Roseland, New Jersey. I'm working on a couple of new books that hopefully will come out, one in 2025. I'm not sure which one. We're working on that. And, I just want to continue to stay in creation and fascination mode, and, just appreciate you, and just appreciate getting to know you and all the success that you've had. And just thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for being here. I love that creation fascination mode. It's made me rethink some of the directions that I'm actually considering myself. So I hope to stay in touch. And I just want to say thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks for listening. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at mindful.money. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/mindfulmoney. We'll be sure to read those out on future episodes.